Welcome to Money Matters TV. My name is Paul Mitchell. I'm your host for this show. I'm joined by my co-host, Mike Dever, who's co-founder of Brandywine Asset Management. Welcome to the
Paul.
show, Mike.
Hey, thank you very much.
So we have a few minutes to chat about business matters, money matters. And one of the things we were chatting about the other day was this whole thing about the unemployment situation. People don't want to work. Somebody says that they've got this stimulus monies. They don't need to work. They get unemployment benefits. Other people say no, that's not it. What's going on, Mike?
Well, you do have that law of unexpected consequences or whatever, and what did happen in the COVID crisis was, the federal government stepped in. They stepped in big, and they provided a lot of money for people that were unemployed. We've continued to do that. And it did reach a point where a lot of people now, rather than going back to work, they find it advantageous to remain unemployed. Not everybody, but you do have a chunk of people who are happy earning some extra money and not working yet. But that'll change in time.
Well, it has to. I mean, unemployment only goes on for so many months, weeks,
Correct.
really.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It got extreme. We hit a point last year where a friend that's a nurse was working full time, and another friend's daughter who was just graduating college and had a job that got laid off. She got laid off from. She was making more in unemployment than the nurse was making in her full time job.
Wow.
So it really got it. Yeah, she was making over $1,000 a week unemployed.
Wow.
So you hit these periods where that didn't make any sense, and obviously you can't keep supporting that forever either. So it's going to change. But right now there's a dearth of low skilled workers, especially in many positions. Restaurants that are trying to come back are finding it difficult to hire.
Yeah. Well, part of the reason is supposed low pay. So have all this talk about making the minimum wage $15, which wouldn't happen overnight regardless. It would be probably a phased in type of thing. But would that really make a difference? I mean, I've heard people in the past say, well, if the minimum wage gets increased substantially, if I'm running a restaurant, instead of having 2 dishwashers, I'll have 1. What does that accomplish?
Right. I mean, that is true. And the initial reaction will be that there will be new ways to find how to automate tasks that otherwise were human powered. And you might have someone running a fryer at a fast food restaurant, and it turns into more of an automated fryer or something instead. Over time, the market does tend to adjust, and pricing goes up on the products to account for the higher cost of producing those. People do end up back in the workforce. It doesn't solve everything by just going and ramming in a higher minimum wage. I've generally been one, let the market determine where the wage should be. If they think that person with low skill should be paid higher, the market will determine that. But politicians don't like that. They want to have a minimum wage. Ultimately, the initial impact from that will dissipate over time, and all the pricing and employment will come back in a line a few years down the road.
Well, another aspect of the whole minimum wage thing, and this has been going on since the founding of our country, before the founding of our country, really, is migrants. I mean, other than the original Anglo-Saxon, pilgrims, everybody else has been a migrant. They're from some other country, type of thing, maybe speaking a different language or whatever. And generally, they don't mind so-called minimum wage. They're thankful, grateful for the opportunity. They might work seasonally, send their money back home, then go back home after the season, that type of thing. So, I mean, why doesn't that just fill the void then?
Well, unfortunately, that's been pretty much shut down over the last few years. Again, with immigration policies that we've had, we've lowered the influx of people who will take those jobs. It's really been on for the last 20 years, both sides of the political spectrum. 20 years ago, Democratic-leaning people and supported by unions didn't want immigration because they thought it would be competing for their jobs.
Right.
Over the last 5 years, you've seen it with the Republicans saying we don't want immigration because we think we're bringing in undesirables. everybody's kind of wrong on all fronts there, really. It's immigrants are the backbone of the country, and a proper immigration policy can not only not take jobs, but create more opportunities for everybody in a country because you have overall growth. Right now, we've got limitations on growth to some extent in certain industries because of the lack of finding suitable workers.
Mhm. It just seems to be amazing. I mean, I get going back to the immigration situation. The reason we have the main reason we have 330 million people in this country is because they came over by a boat
Right, right. Yeah.
and
It,
endured some pretty tough circumstances doing that in tough circumstances when they arrived.
yeah,
And
absolutely. Yeah, they immigrants tend to infuse a entrepreneurial zeal in a society. I mean, it's generally a very positive development to have immigration. That's in a reasonable fashion, but it's a lot like people that move into the new neighborhood, and once they're in, they don't want anything to change. And
mhm,
you're seeing that with immigration too. We're here, we don't want it to change. We want it to be like it is now, and that's not that's not healthy. It's not powerful. It's not how you produce growth. It's not good for business or even for personal development. You need to have growth and change.
mhm. So, in terms of the other aspects of the economy, so we were talking about a lot of this, whether it's immigrants or minimum wage, it's small, mostly small business oriented, I would say, the restaurants, the service economy, that type of thing. How about the larger companies? You're an investment manager, and I read that the big companies have done very well during these tough times of the past year and a half. Why is that?
There's been a lot of liquidity pumped into the financial system over the last year. Um, right now, it's in excess of $5 trillion between monetary and fiscal policy that's contributed to just this excess liquidity. And you'll see a lot of it going into stocks. Heck, a lot of it's going into cyber currencies.
Hmm.
You're seeing that. I mean, right now, the market cap of the cryptocurrencies is about one third that of the entire amount of gold mined in the history of civilization. Uh, and that's a product that was just made up 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's a symptom of the excess liquidity that's in there. So that excess liquidity has found itself into a lot of different ways. It's not evenly distributed, but people have had money and they've spent money where they can. And big companies, the Amazons of the world, for example, are just well positioned to take that money.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, the mom and pop restaurant or the farm to table restaurant down the street, they're not able to make it under that environment.
Hmm. It's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, so a lot of this liquidity seems to be with, again, whether it's larger companies or wealthier people. I mean, the average Joe down the street who doesn't have 6 months of savings, they're not investing in cryptocurrencies, I don't think.
No, I mean, you do have some at that level there where you've got the unemployment that's coming in, but for most people the unemployment didn't exceed their regular pay, and most of those people now are welcome back into their work. Yeah, they didn't get the windfall, but the big companies, the financial firms, a lot of those organizations, clearly the online companies, benefited from the windfall of the liquidity
Mhm.
in the market.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we have lots of issues that we can continue to talk about, but in the meantime, we do have a question from one of our viewers. I think it's right up your alley, Mike.
Sure.
Frank Lang of Philadelphia asks, "What are ESG funds, and how are they doing?"
Okay, so ESG, it's just shorthand for environmental, social, and governance, corporate governance. And it's really something that's built up a lot over the last 15 years, where big corporate pension plans or state pension plans, public pension plans, for example, have been more interested in the type of behavior the companies invest in necessarily than maybe even the stock price or how it is as an underlying investment. So they've invested in companies that they feel are good ESG companies. And corporate governance means independent directors, for example, on the board. Um, they want to see a mix of people on the board, and obviously social and environmental. They're a little more obvious, but uh, for the
What
last year or so, they've performed well.
what's a social example?
Companies that are doing good for society rather
Yeah.
than, you've got companies, the tobacco companies were all shunned.
Mhm.
It's they're not good, for society. But a lot of some of the health companies, obviously anything that has to do with on the
Finding,
environmental side with carbon is bad, and anything getting rid of carbon or replacing carbon is good.
finding the cure for dementia and Parkinson's disease.
It's a good.
It's a very good. We'll be hearing more about that in a moment. Well,
But
thanks, Mike.
those stocks did do well over the last year. It doesn't mean they're going to forever, but
Mhm,
there is some underlying reason why companies that do good
mhm.
for the society or have good governance, especially, that's always tended to show over time they perform better than their peers in the market.
Well, thanks, Mike.
Sure.
Now, if our other viewers are interested in sending in a question to Money Matters TV, here's how you do it.
You can have your questions answered on Money Matters. Please go to our website, money-matterstv.com. On our homepage, click on the banner on the right that says, Send us your questions. While you're on our website, you can find information about our host and guests, as well as show notes and links about this show and past shows. Money Matters is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can listen to Money Matters while you're on the go. That website address, again, is money, MONEY, -matters, MATTERS, TV.com.
Okay, that brings us to the best part of the show. We have our featured guest. And today's guest actually is a repeat guest, going to bring us up to date on some of her activities that we heard about 6 months ago. It's Maria Maccecchini. She's PhD and CEO of Annovis Bio, Inc. Welcome, Maria, to the show. Glad to hear. Look forward to hearing more updates about your exciting company and developments.
Thank you so much, Paul, for having me back. Yes, I'm really excited to give you an update. I was here in December, and I explained that our company has a novel approach to treating Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. I explained that what we were doing was protecting nerve cells from dying. So we're not working with plaque, we're not working with tangles, we're protecting nerve cells from dying. Now, why is that important? Because every function you do depends on a nerve cell. And if that nerve cell dies, the function goes away. And that is true in your brain. If you have dead nerve cells, your brain doesn't function so well. That's true in your feet. If the nerve cells to your foot die, you can't walk. So my goal has been to protect nerve cells from dying. And the idea is that if you can protect them in one disease, it should carry over to another disease, because nerve cells die the same way, be that in Alzheimer's or in Parkinson's. I told you in December that this novel concept, I finally was fortunate enough to find enough money to run 2 phase 2 studies. So these are small clinical studies that show efficacy. One is in Alzheimer's disease patients, and the other is in Parkinson's disease patients. I also said in December that we would have some data in late spring, early summer. And so I'm here to give you not all the data, because we don't have all the data, but to give you some initial data. And I'm really excited because we finished treating our Parkinson's patients about 6 weeks ago. And what we see right away, because once you treat the patients, you can look at whether the drug is safe. And the other thing you can look at is whether it has an effect. So you look at function. And the functions we measured and found to be statistically significantly improved is speed, coordination, and motor function. So our Parkinson's patients do better in terms of movement and fast movement and accurate movement. Well, what we have to do now is evaluate how the brain looks in terms of dead nerve cells, in terms of inflammation, and in terms of how it works. And we are expecting this data early next week, but we are very confident it's going to work. Okay, so the study is divided into 2 pieces. One is efficacy, And the other is then look at the brain chemistry that goes with the efficacy to confirm that everything fits together. Mm-hmm. Because you want the brain to reflect that there are no dead nerve cells. If there are dead nerve cells, it's hard to explain why you see efficacy. The Alzheimer patients, we finished about 2 weeks ago, a week ago. So by next week, we will have psychometric tests. We will know if it worked in terms of cognition, and we will also have safety. So I am really excited that the first set of data in Parkinson's looks really, really good. Our drug works in increasing coordination, speed, and motor function in Parkinson's disease. And I very much expect in a few weeks to be able to say that it increases cognition.
Wow, congratulations. Mike.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay, yeah. So Maria, I mean, what is it? I know from your prior show, you talk a little bit about some of the differences you have in the way you approach it and your competitors approach it. And you mentioned here a little bit about plaque versus healing cells. Can you give a little bit more reason what that is and why it's better than what people have been doing that hasn't been working for the last couple decades?
Absolutely. When you open the brain of an Alzheimer patient, what you do find is plaque, blobs, tangles, long blobs, and in the brain of a Parkinson's patient, you find round blobs, Lewy bodies. So people assumed and worked on it for 20 years that these blobs cause the disease. I look at it the exact opposite. The proteins that are in these blobs are toxic. They are the ones that cause the disease. The reason we have blobs in our brains when we get demented is that the brain doesn't like to get killed. There are all these proteins around that kill nerve cells. What does the brain do? It takes the proteins and it puts them into a blob. It's like putting them into a garbage can, except the brain has no way of getting rid of the garbage, so it stays there. So I kind of turned the whole thing on its head. I say, if you remove the garbage can, it's too late. You have to work with the toxic proteins before they go into the garbage can. And it took over 20 years for people to slowly, and I mean slowly, look at what we are doing and saying, maybe it could be right.
Wow.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah. What did the early readout say about your drug in Parkinson's disease?
It says that it works. Parkinson's patients are slow in writing. They shake. They're slow in coordination if they have to put something together or if they have to code fields. And their motor function is impaired. And our drug improves those things. It works.
And how about Alzheimer's?
Well, that data I don't have yet. I'll let you know in 2 weeks. But since we developed the drug originally for Alzheimer's disease and found that it fully reconstitutes memory and learning in 4 different animal models. So in 4 animal models, the animals get demented. Those animal models are Alzheimer mice, Down syndrome mice, traumatic brain injury rats, and stroke mice. If you hit an animal over the head, if you cause an artery to be clogged, the mouse will get demented. And in all these 4 models, the animals have perfectly normal memory and learning if they're treated with our drug. So we have a lot of data on memory and learning, much more so than on movement function. And if it moves in movement function, it's going to work in cognition.
So you're saying that they go from dementia back to pre-dementia, back to normal in these
our
mice?
Animals go fully back to normal, yes.
So is this something where you're not trying to slow the progression of Alzheimer's, you're trying to reverse it?
That is an excellent question that I cannot answer in humans. In Down syndrome animals, we are actually reversing it. But Down syndrome animals are Down syndrome animals.
Right.
In humans, what I believe that I can be pretty sure of is that we stop it. See, maybe I can explain it by saying you have a sick arm, okay? And it moves slowly. But the reason it's sick is it has arthritis. You get rid of the arthritis, it moves normally again. Okay. So, however, if you chop off the arm and the arm is paralyzed, there's nothing to recover. So it could get better because you're getting rid of what causes the brain to be sluggish. And then you can improve that sluggishness and get it back to normal. Maybe that is what we're seeing in Down syndrome mice. Whereas if it's dead, it's dead.
Okay.
Maria, what's been your secret to your success in raising all the money for these clinical trials? That's really quite something.
Well, I had this idea, it's almost 12 years ago, and basically nobody believed it. I mean, it isn't even funny, except you have to have a sense of humor. And I just really believed that they had it backward and I had it forward. I really believed it. And it didn't matter how many times people told me I was crazy. I really believed in my science and I stuck to it. I was lucky because I had some investors who stuck with me. Mm-hmm. I've had investors that have been with me for 11 years, almost the whole length of the company. And they invested their stock at more or less $1, some 75 cents. And now it's 2025, so they're very, very happy. The funny thing is nobody is selling. They all say it's going to work. We believe in you. So I was lucky. The other reason I was lucky, I had money from selling my previous company, and I was able to not pay me a salary and put in over $2 million. So whenever everybody told me I was crazy, I put in more money. And yeah, it may be crazy, but it worked.
Yeah. Wow. That's great. Now, how long will it take to get from this point to where somebody can actually buy this and use this? How much more time do you need?
So, as I said, the Alzheimer's study is pretty much done, and we have to analyze the data. So in 1 to 2 months, we'll have everything. Then we'll put it together, go to the FDA, ask for a larger study. The larger study will be in 300 to 400 people in Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. And since nothing has worked, we really don't know how long it takes to get efficacy. Remember, I saw my efficacy in Parkinson's in 1 month. That is ridiculously short a time because people do 2-year studies. So maybe we can do a short study. I don't know. What we will do is do a variable length study. We can do that as long as the FDA approves it, where every 6 months we check. If we see efficacy, we stop the study. If we don't see efficacy, we either keep going or stop it. And that would mean if we start, let's say, in January, and let's say we have data in 6 months, that means a year because you're not enrolling everybody on January 1. It may very well be that in 2 years we're on the market.
Mm-hmm. That's great. How are people getting into the study?
Well, the study is over. But
the next phase.
The next one, actually, I would strongly suggest for people to enroll, whether it's the Alzheimer's or the Parkinson's. And the reason is we have data in this small study that it works. Well, in Alzheimer's, I don't know yet, but it's likely.
Right.
And this study here, we took spinal fluid, we took blood, we did a lot of tests. In the other study, we will take blood every 6 months. That's it. We will do much less tests because we know which ones we should look at. You know, right now we were fishing. We don't know which tests work and don't work. So we were doing more tests. Of course, we paid these people in all fairness, okay? They got paid. It was not an easy study. They had a lot of tests to do. And they were giving spinal fluid, which they take it from here. They were giving blood. So the next study, you give blood every 6 months and you do one test. That's it.
Okay. And is that a double blind? Is that how it
runs? Yes, everything is double blind.
Right.
I absolutely do not believe in open label studies.
Okay.
Maria, what do you look at as your greatest challenge in the next 6 to 12 months?
Interestingly enough, maybe less scientific because I'm pretty sure Alzheimer's is going to work. It's to actually build the company. We have been very, very virtual, okay? Because I have no money. When you have no money, you can't hide. I have an excellent chief financial officer. We could have never gone public if I didn't have somebody who knew what finance was. And now we are hiring people. We just started. We have a VP research. We're going to have a chief medical officer. And when you go from 2 to 10, it's a huge expansion if at the end we're only 10 people. And the chemistry may not work. The people may not like each other. So I think that if we were 200 and you added 10, there would be no problem. They integrate or don't, but it's not a problem. But going from 2 to 10 is going to be tough. Yeah. But I'm fully prepared. My previous company had 130 people. When I worked in big pharma, I had a big group. I'm fully prepared, and I'm getting old, so that means I can mentor a lot more and not be worried.
Would things have moved faster if you had more money 5 years ago?
Oh yeah, we would have done everything we did now 5 years ago.
That's right. Wow.
Yeah. See, it was a convergence. The reason nothing happened for 10 years is two things. One is people said this drug looks too good to be true. How does it do it? I go, I didn't remember. Yeah, it looks too good to be true, but it doesn't. And so we really worked on the mechanism. Today, I can explain in great detail why it works in more than one disease, why it protects nerve cells from dying, and how it protects nerve cells from dying. That was one reason. We have so much data compared to other companies. We have maybe 10, 20 times more data because nobody believed it. So what do? You keep proving and proving and proving. The other thing that happened is that the amyloid hypothesis is thankfully finally falling apart. So people are more open-minded to look at novel approaches to these diseases.
Yeah, that's great.
So Maria, do you have any huge dreams that you've been working on?
Actually, honestly, I think for the last, I would say 20 years, I've been in neuroscience for 30 years. But for the last 20 years, I wanted to protect nerve cells from dying. I think I did it. Mm-hmm. So, you can't do more than that. I may climb a few more mountains. I may, do some charitable work. But basically, I wanted to protect nerve cells from dying because if your nerve cells don't die, you preserve the functions they do.
Terrific. Any regrets?
No. Everybody makes choices. I never had a family. I never had kids. Do I miss it? No. But I don't look back. If I said when I was at that point and I had the option of marrying whoever and I didn't, well, I didn't, okay? When I was at that point and I went to this pharma rather than to that pharma, would it have been better? Maybe, maybe not. No, I never look back. So regrets is not something I have.
Good.
That's great.
That'll keep you sane.
Yeah, you only have one life. You can't relive it 10 times, 10 different ways. So that's great.
Any suggestions to young people who want to get in your type of business?
Well, I'm a little different. If you want to make money, you need to fit into a culture. I didn't want to make money. I wanted to protect nerve cells from dying. If I happen to make money, that's good. I'll give it away. So I didn't have to fit into anything. I wanted to protect nerve cells from dying. And the way I thought I was going to do that is by reverse what people believe, to change the paradigm 100%, put it on its head. So if you want to do that, then you just take a lot of criticism. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, Maria, we certainly wish you the best and look forward to having you come back in another few months with another great update, another big smile on your face. You just radiate the happiness and I think success and achieving some of your long-term goals. So our hat is off to you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. I am so happy I finally got there. I'm not young. I've been fighting for a long time.
Like I said, it shows very well. So thank you very much. And that kind of wraps up our show. Would like to just mention that our next guest will be Gary Golden, who's CEO of BHCU. CU stands for Credit Union. So we want all our viewers to remember that on this show, your money matters.